Alright, so I wasn't sure if I wanted to make a separate video for Dune or if I wanted to put this on another video where I'm going to be talking about a bunch of shows and films that I watched throughout January and February, but it's Dune and I really want to talk about Dune, probably in length, but here we are. So I just watched Dune Part 2, and when I say I just watched Dune Part 2, I meant that I watched it like a couple of days ago. Like, it's been a couple of days since I watched Dune. Saw it on IMAX as well, and it's incredible. I really, really love Dune Part 2 a lot. I haven't watched it again, so I'm still raving about this on a first-time viewing. Still trying to find like the time and day to actually, rewatch it again. Maybe not in IMAX, because the nearest IMAX for me is like far away. If I want to watch it again, like, I'll probably just watch it on a normal theater. But anyways, Dune Part 2, it's incredible. I really, really enjoyed it a lot. Now, before I do continue on with my thoughts and my opinions on Dune and Dune Part 2, I will say that this isn't my first foray into Dune. I already know about Dune, like, I know the story of Dune. I know kind of what happens in Dune Messiah, and I know bits and pieces about, like, the future books, like, stuff like Children of Dune and God Emperor Dune and such. Like, my experience with Denis Villeneuve's Dune isn't really a blind experience in terms of, like, story-wise. It's not really my first Dune movie as well. Like, I've watched the David Lynch 1984 film, which was, yeah. Definitely one of the movies ever made. Going to speedrun my thoughts on Dune Part 1 before I continue on with Dune Part 2. I really enjoyed Dune Part 1. I thought it was an excellent film. Like, it's visually stunning, one of the best looking films ever. Rewatched Dune Part 1 before, like, I watched Dune Part 2. Fantastic film. Really enjoyed it. Love all of the characters. Love all of the portrayals of the characters. One thing that I do have a gripe on Dune Part 1, and it's a gripe that a lot of people also had, and it's not really a complete story. I know it is. It's not a complete story, but it's the manner in how the film was structured and how it leads. Because I wouldn't say that it's a typical 3-act structured film. The climax of the film happened right in the middle. Right, it happened straight right in the middle. That was the climactic moment of the film. By definition, not really the climactic moment of the film, but it's like the highest point of the film. After that, we kind of went down a bit. And while I do love that part, I do love the second half of the film, it doesn't hit as hard because it's not really... It's leading up to Dune Part 2, which should be the climax for Dune Part 1, but we never really get it. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean. Overall, really fantastic film, but it definitely left me with wanting, like, God, I need Part 2 right now. That is exactly what I got. Part 2 is basically everything that I love about Part 1 and more. Everything that I didn't like about Part 1, which isn't really a lot. Like Part 1 is near perfect in my opinion. Part 2 is perfect. Part 2 is everything that I wanted from Part 1 and more. It dives so much into the world building and the lore of Arrakis, of Dune itself, the Fremen, the everything. No spoilers throughout this entire video, by the way. Like, I'm not going to be spoiling anything, but I do love how much this film packs information. It's genuinely incredible to look at, and it's also incredible, and I was just in awe at how much Denis Villeneuve was able to basically just cram that second half of the story into something that is tangible and something that is pleasing to the eye. And 2 hours and 40 minutes flew by. I did not feel that runtime at all. In fact, I would say that I wanted more. I feel like 2 hours and 40 minutes was not enough. I wanted more. Dune Parts 1 and 2 combined is a 5-hour experience, and I feel like that is not enough. I feel I want more. Give me more. Should have been 3 hours. I do believe that this is one of those films where you're probably going to love it more in a theater. It's just that the visual scope and the beautifully realized world shot by incredible cinematographer Greg Fraser, which props to him. This film, every frame a painting, every shot is incredible. Every moment, every scene that barely has any dialogue can is just oozes with so much emotion that it's like beautiful. But it's that immersive experience. It's that immersion that I feel like you're only going to get if you do watch it in theaters. Also, please watch it in theaters so the movie can make money and they can make part 3. I need Dune Messiah. But yeah, it's an incredible experience. Visuals aside, I do want to talk about how much the movie uses the Fremen language. I don't think this is something that a lot of people have actually talked about. Like I was watching a bunch of other reviews about this film, all rave, all positive about it, but I don't think a lot of them kind of touch upon this, because this is like one thing that I really, really love about this part of Dune. Because like Dune Part 1, we focus mostly on, the Atreides and the Harkonnens, right? And most of them speak English, as they should. There are some like cool moments like where Jessica uses like sign language along with like Dr. Yue and such. But here in Part 2, since we are focusing more on the Fremen and their culture and their, ideologies, their way of life in the desert, we're just talking straight up made up language gibberish. And I love it. I love it. It's just one of those great world building, immersive, way where you're watching something and the characters are speaking in a made up language, almost alien in a sense that you have no idea what they're saying, right? There are subtitles, of course, but like, you know what I mean? You feel like you are transported into a world that is not of this realm, not on Earth, something completely different. And I love that I feel like more than half of the film is the characters talking in Fremen, talking in like made up languages. I was mostly reading this entire film. I love it. I love it. It's like the thing that makes the world feel more realized and real. Like sure, you can have characters and aliens and fantasy creatures and whatever in all other stories speak English. That's fine. But I love this even more. It's really well done, and I love how much the characters speak in Fremen, and I love the development for Paul as well, because it's not like Paul immediately understands Fremen. No, it's a gradual development for him. At the start of the film, he's still speaking in English, but then as the film progresses more and more, he starts to speak more and more of the Fremen language. And speaking of Paul, I think Paul is probably my favorite character in Dune Part 2. Like, this is one of those stories where the main character is the best character. Like sometimes the main character isn't really your favorite character, sometimes it's like the side characters. No, Dune Part 2 made me love Paul Atreides a lot more than Dune Part 1. Like, Dune Part 1, as I said, you have an idea of what Paul Atreides will be, but you haven't seen his true potential yet. Dune Part 2 portrays that potential and then some. There are moments, scenes in this film where I just felt goosebumps, and I'm like, yeah, that's a leader. Like, that is a leader. And I love Paul's character arc and development throughout this entire film. Again, kind of know about it going into the film because like I know how the story of Dune goes, but just to see it be realized, and especially through Timothée Chalamet's like entire acting and performance, it is just incredible. Like, I would not be surprised if Timothée Chalamet gets multiple nominations for like best actor, because I feel like Timothée Chalamet just acted the fuck out in this movie. Like, he poured his heart out. Like, this This is Paul Atreides. This is a charismatic person, and you know it, and you feel the level of conflict within him, especially, in regards to, like, well, I can't really say spoilers, but in regards to, like, his destiny and such, and how he is at odds with it. It's just great. And it's not just Timothée Chalamet. It's like pretty much every cast in this film put their A game. Like, they all did a good job. Zendaya as Chani is great. Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica is fantastic as well. Austin Butler, dog, and even like the minor characters. I will say, like, some of these side characters, like I'm gonna list off some of the names, like Leia Sedu's character, Christopher Walken as the Emperor, Florence Pugh as Princess. I'm forgetting her name. But these characters, they're fine. They're fine. They still act out great. Don't get me wrong. It's just that we don't really have enough time or screen presence for these characters. But they're giving the best that they can, and that's like very much appreciated. It's still nice to see them in on the screen. Javier Bardem is Stilgar. I almost forgot about him. Highlight of the movie. I fucking love Stilgar in this film. There are parts in the film that made the theater laugh, and it's mostly from Stilgar, and I love it. He's great. Javier Bardem as Stilgar is great. I love that character. But all of these characters and their acting and their performance are fantastic, and it paves the way for the thematic element of the film to be delivered strongly as well, in my opinion. The film has many themes, many religious themes as well, right? Trying not to dive deeper into it, because if you haven't seen Dune Part 2 or the trailers, or you've only seen Part 1 and you don't know what happens next in Part 2, then kind of hard to actually talk about it. But I think they've done a pretty solid job at like displaying and talking about these themes in general, and especially in how it correlates to the main characters and the main central plot of Dune as a whole. One thing that I feel like some people may not like as much is probably going to be the romantic relationship between Chani and Paul, because I can definitely see some people thinking that, or feeling that, it's not as developed as they would love. For me personally, I think it was developed perfectly, and by perfectly I mean given the limited time that they have, because this is a film, right? This is a 2.5-hour film. This isn't a TV show where we can have stretches of episodes to develop these characters on a much more slower pace. But in terms of like film structure and in terms of like the film medium as a whole, I feel like they've done a pretty solid job at displaying Chani and Paul's relationship pretty well. And at the end of the day, all of that relationship between Paul and Chani serves a much bigger purpose towards the end. And I feel like all it needed to do is make us believe that these two characters are in love, they are in a relationship, so that when so that the themes of Dune Part 2, and especially like some of the more internal conflict happen by the end of the film, by the third act, it'll probably hit a lot harder. Because it does, for me. And speaking about the end of Dune Part 2, I would say, pretty great job. Solid ending. Still not a definitive ending, but it is a ending for Dune Parts 1 and 2. This is the end of the first book. This is how it ends. and I feel like they ended in a way that is satisfying. Like, if they don't make a third film, I feel like most people will be satisfied with it. Though, we all would agree that, yeah, a third film, we will definitely, if there's no third film, that's fine, but we definitely want a third film. So, go watch it in theaters so that Dune Messiah can happen, please. Yeah, I think they did a pretty good job with the ending of Dune Part Two. Yeah, I love this film. It's solid. It's fantastic. It's great. It's one of the best sci-fi films that I've seen in recent times. It's probably one of the best films that I've seen in the past 5 years, 10 years. Probably one of my favorite films in the 2020s. Yeah, I love this film. It's great. It's fantastic. Go and watch it. Hope you guys enjoy Dune Part 2. Watch it on your own. Form your own opinions. Let me know in the comment section down below what you all think about Dune Part 2. And I will see you all next time. Take care, everybody. Have a nice day.